Diolch yn fawr iawn. Ym 1999, pan roedd sylw o ran fwyaf o bobl yng Nghymru yn hollol naturiol ar ein cynulliad cenedlaethol newydd a ethol, cafodd Plaid Cymru ganlyniad anhygoel arall yn yr etholiadau Ewropeaidd. Eiri Gwyn a fi gafodd y fraint o gynrychioli Plaid Cymru am y tro cyntaf yn Ewrop. Newidiodd hyn bopeth. Am y tro cyntaf, roedd gan Gymru lais annibynnol, llais go iawn yn Ewrop. Aelodau oedd yn gweithio dros fydd cenedlaethol Cymru, yn atebol i neb ond pobl Cymru. Roedd y Senedd pryd hynny yn wahanol iawn i'r un sydd gyda ni heddi. Roedd gan yr Undeb Ewropeaidd 15 aelod wladwriaeth ar y pryd, i gymharu ag 80 nawr. Roedd y rhan fwyaf o benderfyniadau yn cael ei gwneud gan penaethiaid y llywodraethau a cyngor. Erbyn hyn, mae gan y Senedd pwerau deddfu dros bron popeth. Ond roedd yna newid a droed yn 1999. Gorfodwyd y Comisiwn Ewropeaidd cyfan i ymddiswyddo ar ôl sgandal. Roedd yr undeb a drothwy helaethiaid enfawr gyda gwledydd dwyrain Ewrop yn ymuno ar Undeb Ewropeaidd. Ac roedd 1 ar 10 o wledydd yn cynllunio undeb ariannol. Roedd yn glir pryd hynny na fydde strwythur Ewrop oedd wedi cael ei dylunio ar gyfer 6 aelod wladwriaeth yn gallu cynnal y straen o 20 neu fwy. Sut oedd symud ymlaen felly? Beth oedd ateb yr Undeb Ewropeaidd i'r broblem? Wel, credu neu beidio, nathon nhw sefydlu grŵp o ddynion doeth. Ie, wir, dyna oedd y teitl, a dyw e ddim yn joc ar ddiwrnod rhyngwladol menywod heddi. Grŵp o ddynion doeth. Dyna ffordd o adfer perthynas rhwng yr Undeb Ewropeaidd a'i bobl. Sdim ryfedd bod pethau wedi dirywio. Achos dros y blynyddoedd, tro ar ôl tro, cafodd cyfleoedd eu colli i wneud Ewrop yn fwy agored, yn fwy democrataidd, yn fwy effeithiol. Ond mae rhaid i ni wneud pethau yn iawn. Oherwydd mae angen yr Undeb Ewropeaidd arno ni yn fwy nag erioed o'r blaen. Mae Cymru yn elwa oherwydd ei aelodaeth. A'r buddion sy'n dod o gael yn Undeb Ewropeaidd yn bartner i ni. Rydyn ni ar ein ennill o Ewrop, ond dyn ni'n cyfrannu hefyd, wrth gwrs. Rydyn ni yn genedl Ewropeaidd, dwyieithog, fodern. Gallen ni ddysgu pethau i wledydd eraill, yn ogystal â dysgu wrthyn nhw. Yr hyn sydd angen yw adeiladu partneriaeth gyfartal. Ydy, mae pobl Cymru yn elwa trwy aelodaeth o Ewrop. Mae 150 o filoedd o swyddi yng Nghymru yn dibynnu ar ein aelodaeth. Mae hynny tua 1 ym mhob 10 swydd yng Nghymru. A dyn ni'n cael yn termau ariannol, dyn ni'n cael mwy yn ôl nag yn ni'n talu i mewn. Cyd-sefyll, solidarity yw un o werthoedd sylfaenol yr Undeb Ewropeaidd. Gair eitha estron mewn gwleidyddiaeth Prydain heddi. Cafodd yr Undeb Ewropeaidd ei adeiladu ar sail cydsafiad rhwng y rhanbarthau cyfoethog a'r rhanbarthau tlawd. Ei nod yw creu cyfle cyfartal i bobl ym mhob ran o Ewrop. Mae 3/4 Cymru, wrth gwrs, yn cymhwyso i dderbyn y lefel uchaf o ariannu, oherwydd ein bod yn un o rhanbarthau tlotaf yn Ewrop. Nid damwain yw hwn. Ni ddigwyddodd hwn oherwydd bod ni ddim yn gallu gwneud yn well. Digwyddodd hyn yn hytrach o ganlyniad i bolisïau economaidd Prydain, a'i ffocws nhw ar dde dwyrain Lloegr. Mae angen llywodraeth yng Nghymru gyda uchelgais, gyda delwedd i'n cymryd ni allan o'r pydiw tlodi hwn. Gyda cynllun economaidd fydd yn adeiladu ar talentau, arloesiad a profiadau ein pobl. Yn yr un ffordd, ydyn ni wedi gweld cenhedloedd bychain eraill ar draws Ewrop yn gwneud. Gallwn ni fanteisio ar y cydsafiad hwnnw o Ewrop i adeiladu ein economi a dod i ware prif rhan ar y llwyfan rhyngwladol. Rwy'n falch iawn o'r hyn mae Plaid Cymru wedi cyflawni yn Ewrop. Fi oedd yr unig aelod o Gymru i bleidleisio yn erbyn torri cyllideb yr Undeb Ewropeaidd llynedd, oedd hefyd yn golygu torri'r arian oedd yn dod i Gymru. Fi oedd yr unig aelod o Gymru i wrthwynebu torri taliadau amaethyddol. Mae 80% o'n ffermwyr yn dibynnu arnyn nhw. Roedd y pleidiau eraill yn dilyn Lain Llundain. Yn San Steffan, fe aethon nhw mor bell a cefnogi diddymu ariannu rhanbarthol yr Undeb Ewropeaidd mwyn cadw'r arian yna yn trysolus y Deyrnas Gyfunol. Byddai wedi cael effaith trychinebus. Siawns byddwn ni wedi gweld yr arian yna yn dod i Gymru wedyn. Ond ni lwyddodd Prydain. Mae gwledydd eraill yn deall cydsafiad. Mae un newid mawr wedi digwydd wrth gwrs fe lwyddais i sicrhau statws rhannol swyddogol ar gyfer yr iaith Gymraeg yn Ewrop. Roedd yn gam mawr ymlaen, ac fe lwyddon ni oherwydd bod Plaid Cymru ar y pryd wrth gwrs yn rhan o Llywodraeth Cymru yn un. Roedd yn gam, ond dyw e ddim yn ddigon. Dwi eisiau cydraddoldeb ar gyfer ein dwy iaith. Fel cenedl Ewropeaidd, mae gyda ni hawl i hynny, ond mae'r achos economaidd yn un llethol. I'r sawl sy'n dweud bod ni ddim yn gallu ffodio gwneud hyn, dwi'n dweud allwn ni ddim ffodio peidio gwneud achos mae miloedd o bobl ifanc yng Nghymru yn ddwyieithog, fel mae pobl ifanc ar draws gwledydd Ewrop. Pam felly mae pobl ifanc sy'n siarad Ffrangeg ac Almaeneg, neu Sbaeneg a Saesneg, neu Gwyddeleg a Latfieg, yn gymwys i weithio o fewn sefydliadau'r Undeb Ewropeaidd fel pobl dwyieithog, tra nad yw pobl sy'n medru siarad Cymraeg a Saesneg ddim. Ond yw'r Gymraeg yn cyfri? Mwyn roi yr un cyfle i bobl Cymru, mae rhaid cael statws swyddogol llawn i'r Gymraeg. Os dyn ni'n edrych ar esiampl Iwerddon, ers i'r iaith Wyddeleg gael statws swyddogol yn 2007, mae wedi dod â hwb economaidd enfawr i'r diwydiant cyfieithu, i'r prifysgolion, wedi trawsnewid statws yr iaith yn y system arall, yn system addysg, ac mae wedi cael effaith ar yr economi ehangach. Dwi wedi lansio deiseb nawr i gael cefnogaeth i'r cais ar gyfer statws swyddogol i'r Gymraeg yn Ewrop. Mae'n bryd i Lywodraeth Prydain a gweddill Ewrop cydnabod ein cenedl ddwyieithog. Mae'r Undeb Ewropeaidd yn orchest rhyfeddol, ond mae'n bryd iddo fe newid. Dwi wedi sôn am iaithoedd, wel, mae gan Ewrop a iaith ei hun. Europe has a language all of its own, of course. It's no wonder that people feel distant from the EU when we have these strange terms. You'll hear about CAP, cohesion, convergence, ACTA, CITES, ITE, ROS, 10T, NUTS 1, NUTS 2, NUTS 3, and we. All of those things that make it so strange, so distant. Yet, we need the EU. We need the EU to lead the way on legislation, on fighting climate change. We need radical and positive action on an international level. Wales has natural assets We've heard so much in the past couple of days about the huge potential we have as a powerhouse for renewable energy. We must work with the European Union to develop that potential. We need serious investment in green jobs to build a sustainable economy. And as President of the European Free Alliance Group in the Parliament, I work closely with others in our group, the Greens and other parties, to promote this agenda, to ensure that we don't lose sight of the climate crisis, which is as real as the economic one. Euroscepticism is not unique to the UK anymore, although it's not in other countries, not quite the Europhobia we see here. It has been spreading across Europe, not least because of the austerity measures that have caused and still are causing such misery. Evidence shows now, reports are showing, that cutting wages, cutting public spending, leaving thousands of young people without hope is not the solution to any crisis. I understand why people have lost faith in the European Union. But the answer is not to walk away. The answer is to change it. The economic crisis pushed Europe to its limits. It shifted the focus from people and onto markets. That must change now, and we have to change it. We can start in May with massive savings achieved quite easily. Over £150 million a year is spent moving the European Parliament between Brussels and Strasbourg. How many people realise that for 4 days every month, the entire Parliament shifts between those cities and at the end of 4 days shifts all the way back again? It creates 19,000 tonnes of CO2 emissions. So while we debate in fighting climate change, we are creating all of those emissions ourselves. There's a perfectly good chamber in Brussels. Yet there are buildings in Strasbourg which stand empty for 317 days a year, but they are still heated and air-conditioned. 3/4 of MEPs in the European Parliament have voted to end this scandalous waste of money. But we can't change it. Because although the European Parliament has joint decision-making over almost all areas of EU policies, we can't decide where we meet, because that's written into the treaty. Only the UK and all the other 27 heads of government can make that decision, and they won't make that decision. They allow this situation to continue, and it's ludicrous, and it must stop. And if the European Parliament wants to win its place as an institution, a parliament that people see making a real difference to people's lives, then it has to start acting like one. We legislate on vital issues like workers' rights, agriculture, fisheries, the environment, food labelling, human rights, public health, all kinds of issues that affect all of our everyday lives. I steered a new law through Parliament restricting the use of hazardous chemicals in electrical and electronic goods so they can be recycled safely, so they are not sent to the poorest countries and burnt and children sift through the rubbish looking for metals that they can sell. But too much of Parliament's time now and money is spent on so-called own initiative reports. What does that mean? Well, it means that MEPs write reports on issue of interest to them. They go through the committee, they go to the whole plenary session, they are voted on, go through the whole parliamentary process. But at the end of the day, they are just an opinion. They are not law, they don't change the law. And last year, we dealt with nearly 200 of these reports, taking up all of that parliamentary time. It's time the Parliament focused on making laws, its real purpose, in areas where there is need for international regulation, like GMOs and like climate change. And one example of an issue that the EU deals with, which I know matters very much to people in Wales, is animal welfare. As a result of pressure from people in Wales and across Europe, we succeeded in getting a ban on cosmetics tested on animals, a big success. The European Commission has now drafted a comprehensive law on animal welfare, which will cover all kinds of aspects of this issue, and it will be debated after May in the coming months. And this issue is so important. I get so many letters and emails from constituents about these issues that I believe it's time that we had a commissioner with specific responsibility for animal welfare. It would not only mean that these issues were dealt with properly when we are framing new EU laws, but it would also send out a very clear message to the rest of the world that the EU takes animal welfare very seriously. The bottom line for Plaid Cymru is that our future lies in Europe, but in a new and a better Europe. While the UK Prime Minister votes on Wales's behalf in the European Council, Wales's interests will never be taken into account. We had a very stark example of that recently, when Wales was left completely off the map of key European transport routes. That's what happened. It was Plaid Cymru that raised that issue, that noticed that this had been done and that the Welsh Government hadn't objected. Wales will always lose out unless we have our own voice and our own vote. So it's no secret, is it, that not only does Plaid Cymru want Wales to stay in the EU, but that we want the most radical change of the EU of all. We want Wales to be an independent member state. We want that voice and that vote in the Council. We would have 9 MEPs, not 4 that we've got now. We'd have our own commissioner. That's the kind of change that we want to see. We work with sister parties across Europe towards this aim. We work, of course, with the Scottish National Party and the Catalans. We know about the referenda, the momentous events which are happening later this year. And Scotland will join the EU as an independent member state. Whatever President Barroso says, Scotland will be there, and so will Catalonia. Wales will chart its own course, of course, our own unique course like every nation does. But I can assure you that we won't be left behind in Europe. We in Plaid Cymru understand that the EU project is so much more than money, though. It's about democracy, it's about justice, it's about promoting Wales on the international stage, to work with similar nations and regions across the country, to share experiences, to strengthen and to support each other. And it's been a pleasure in the European Parliament to be able to stage so many exhibitions and meetings to promote the best of what we have in Wales. In fact, we've done so much of it in the past 18 months that people are referring to one area of the Parliament as the Welsh corner. But it's also about peace, of course. This year marks the centenary of the First World War. 100 years ago, a terrible war was about to start, a war that caused unimaginable death and destruction. In 2012, the European Union won the Nobel Peace Prize for its role in maintaining peace in Europe. For some, it was a big joke. Many scoffed at it. But I believe that in this special year, we have an opportunity for the EU to build on that, to establish a new role for itself. Instead of moving towards setting up a European army, which is what some are trying to do, let's establish a European civilian Peace Corps. Not soldiers, but teachers, engineers, lawyers, all those people with skills that can work in areas of potential conflict to prevent violence and increase tolerance and understanding. Wales's future is in Europe. We will one day, too, be an independent nation. Until that time, we can work for the kind of Europe within which Wales can take its place. And the next step is the European elections, 74 days away. And I will repeat our message that Plaid Cymru is the only party that protects the Welsh national interest and promotes that interest in the European Parliament. What does that mean? That means we're the only party that puts the interests of the people of Wales first. We are not told what to do by anyone other than the people of Wales. There's a job to do after this election, and we're ready for the challenge. We mean business, myself and the team of candidates in the election. I want to thank all of the people who are already working hard, campaigning, and to urge anyone who would like to help, who would like to join us in this crucial campaign to get in touch. I am proud to be a member of a party that's outward-looking and forward-thinking. We go into these elections with confidence. We know that we can build a better Wales within a better Europe. We put Wales first, always. Diolch yn fawr.